Well, I started to think about what to do with my life when I was approaching 60 because my dad died at 70 and my mom died at 73. So I was working all the time and trying to decide, did I want to do that until I dropped dead? And the answer is no, of course. So I started looking at what are the options because the Denver metro area was expensive and I knew I couldn't stay there unless I worked until I dropped. So I started looking at alternatives, and the one that popped up that made the most sense was Baja in Mexico.
Hey, Jen Max, you just met Marla, and she is here in La Paz, in El Centenario specifically, just like, about 15 blocks from my house here. And so we're going to hear her story of how she ended up here in the Baja and whether she speaks Spanish, how she feels about safety, all the kind of the standard things. And we're going to get a nice tour of her home. But let's start with where I like to start things, which is the story. So what's a little bit more of that backstory moving here?
I have my own business. I'm a lighting designer and electrical engineer. And as my CPA told me, my income was lumpy. So some years were really, really good, and other years I was sucking on fumes to try and make it by. And that just wasn't going to be sustainable as you get older and you get tired of killing yourself to make a buck. So that's when I started evaluating, and being an engineer, I put it all in a spreadsheet. Which places might be good places to move. And I was looking in the US, and my stepdaughter said, well, what about Mexico? And I'm like, you're right, I love Mexico. So I started adding all sorts of cities in Mexico to the spreadsheet, and I had columns for everything you can imagine. So weather, the number of people, if an airport was near, if there was good medical, and then any other pluses and minuses, and how many days of sun, because that was important to me. In Colorado, it's relatively sunny most of the year. It's relatively dry. So I was trying to avoid humidity. And we'd already been in Denver in the mountains, so I really wasn't interested in being in the mountains. So it was easy to start crossing things off. And it ended up that we were looking at basically areas in Baja. So we started exploring Ensenada, and it just wasn't very practical. So we came down and we looked at Cabo and San Jose del Cabo and La Paz. And of the three of them, La Paz fit us best. I don't know, we're average people with average amounts of money. We can't afford places like Cabo or San Jose del Cabo. We very quickly figured that out. Looked around here and it was like, yeah, I think we want to do this. We want to come down here. So then we kicked the whole planning into high gear, started selling things and having garage sales. So we started the planning about two years before we actually made the move. And then when we got all of that, we put our house on the market and it didn't sell right away. And that's another long story. But we packed up us and our cats and drove down here, which they did not appreciate, by the way. So we got here, we had a place that we rented in town in La Paz. We found a 3-bedroom unfurnished, which was great because we each needed an office and and a bedroom, of course. So we found a place and it worked out well. The landlords were great. No bad stories about it, except it was close to a lot of traffic. It was a little noisy and very dusty. So we started building this one. Well, we signed the contract for this one in January of 24. And they said it would be done in October, and it wasn't. And they said it'd be done the next January, and it wasn't. And then they said June, and it wasn't. And then they said July, and I said bullshit, and I said it'll be ready in October, and lo and behold, it was like the very end of September. On the plus side, we did get some of our rent from La Paz taken off of our final payment, so it's not like we were completely out of those funds, and we didn't get scammed, because you hear nightmare stories about people trying to build a house and then the builder runs off, and that wasn't us. They were slow. They got it done. The workmanship is good. This is not a high-end place, like the windows are cheap and things like that. But when you have a fixed budget, you have to weigh in what can you do and what can't you do. So people are like, do you have a pool? It's like, nope, we're starting a solar system. That's in our budget. The pool is not. So there are trade-offs, but you just have to figure out what you need, because since he's still working full-time and I'm working a little, we need to have really reliable internet, really reliable power. So the solar was important to make sure that our work is backed up on batteries. So if the power goes out in Centenario, which it does, we should be fine to be able to continue to work. We won't have any air conditioning, but we'll be able to work.
Definitely nervous hearing about the timeline for construction, because we're going to be starting construction soon, hopefully for our house in Todos Santos. And we have a name for that. So I'll be announcing the name real soon. Heck, I'm going to announce the name in this video. I did want a quick break in here and let you know that this video is in paid partnership with BetterHelp. Their online therapists are available almost anywhere in the world by phone, messaging, and video chat. If you're a follower of my videos, you probably know that I've worked with a therapist through BetterHelp during my time in Mexico. My therapist is in the UK, and it's great to have someone to talk to who's kind of that unbiased ear, so that we can do that during our weekly chats. If you're ready to give it a try, you can get 10% off your first month if you use my link, betterhelp.com/almost retired. Over 4 million people have already used BetterHelp to start living a happier, healthier life. Heck, I'm going to announce the name in this video. So here it is. If you're watching this video, it's going to be Casa Tropical. It's going to be a little bit tiki themed, a little bit 1950s-ish tropical Polynesian flair to it. So anyway, hopefully that thing will be ready in a reasonable timeline. But back to this here, construction here. We are going to take a tour of the house. But I want to hear a little bit more about that process of building, because she is an engineer. And so what's it like being an engineer, someone who's very familiar with construction in the United States, working down here in Mexico?
Well, the construction down here is completely different than it is back home. I mean, our houses are what they call stick built, just wood studs and drywall. And the conduit and everything's run in the walls, or in the case of a house, it's usually Romex. So I was very familiar with the construction methods back home. But to come down here and to see how they built things was a new thing. This is concrete masonry units and plaster. So, and the thing that was surprising to us was that if they made a mistake, which they did, they would just go back and fix it. But you would chip out the wall and put it back in and then plaster back over it again. And it kept occurring to me, why not do it right the first time? But they don't think that way. I think it's because labor is less expensive, that they just built it the way that all the other plans were and didn't pay any attention to the plans that we'd made up, and that we had actually made some pretty big changes. So there ended up being some compromises. They didn't put a window where it was supposed to be, so I had to compromise on the size of the window. Some of the walls are crooked, which I'm kind of a perfectionist. It drives me nuts, but I can't think about it because it's just the way things happen. But most of the stuff that we asked for, they put it in, because I ordered my lights from back in the US, and I ordered my lighting controls from the US because we wanted the smart controls, because we want to be as energy efficient as possible, so everything is LED. They didn't understand how to install the lights, even though I explained it multiple times. It's one of those things where you send things over and over and over and keep reminding them to do it, and it's still like, huh? So it can be very frustrating, but I just had to take it with a grain of salt and just take a deep breath and not be so concerned about perfection, which is what I normally am concerned with when it comes to buildings. I mean, I design them. You don't want to make any mistakes because somebody will bitch at you about it. I probably shouldn't have said that, but they will. And I don't like being at that end of the complaining. So I don't complain unless it's something serious. So, we'd let some things slide, but when the kitchen cabinets weren't full height, or they weren't deep like they were supposed to be, that I didn't let slide. So there were certain things that's like, no, that's not negotiable. We won't work with you on that. You need to do it the right way. The way we paid for it, it was in the contract. You need to follow what we paid for and what we agreed on. So it's kind of loosey-goosey. Not everything is written down, so you just have to keep your notes, keep all your WhatsApps, keep all your emails, and then you probably have to resend them again. It's like, okay, here's this plan that I marked up where I said I wanted this and this and this and this and this. And you need to put this in. Like, they still owe me an outlet in the living room. It's like, come on, guys. We've discussed this. The toilet in my main bathroom is a short one, and I repeatedly asked for a 17-inch tall toilet. I'm tall. I don't like feeling like I'm falling onto the floor when I have to go to the bathroom. So some things are still going to have to be fixed. I've got a list going, but it's one of those deals where you just have to be patient and understand it's a different culture. It'll get done eventually, and it'll get done to a nice level of satisfaction. If it's not going to be perfect. None of it's going to be perfect, but it should be good enough. And if you can deal with that, then you're doing great.
I think that's a great point about accepting good enough, knowing where you're willing to compromise. I did have a long discussion with my contractor working at my house. We just changed over from an in-the-wall air conditioning unit to a mini split, and he was putting the bricks in. And we had the longest discussion as to how many layers of bricks there was going to be. And I was like, I want it to match the existing bricks. And he's like, oh, no, but it fits the way the joint should be. It fits. Those are really thick joints. And I was like, oh, but I want thick joints because the rest of the wall has thick joints. So we ended up with the right size joints, but I was a little nervous as he was going. I was like, he's going to just do it the way he wants to, even though he's told me that he's going to do it my way. So it's just something to be cognizant of, and to also watch them constantly. So be constantly looking at your set of the plans. We are planning on being in Todos Santos at least once a week. That's not that often when it comes to construction, but we will be looking at things and making sure they're going according to the plans that we agreed upon. So we're spending a lot of time in the planning process to just kind of get to like, okay, well, we need another light here, another light switch here. This light switch here is supposed to control those lights over there, this, that type of thing. So, but I have a little bit of a construction background too. So I'm really used to reading plans, but really a lot of these houses here are built, they're kind of spec homes. So the contractor's used to building the exact same thing over and over again. And so the guys out in the field don't necessarily realize they're onto this particular house and that things were going to be different in this house. They're just used to building the same thing over and over again. So that's just kind of common when you're in this type of home. But the homes, it did get complete after a little bit of time. So let's go around and take a tour of the house and see what they have here.
As you come in, the first room you see is the living room, which if I thought about it, I would have made it a couple of feet wider because we've got a huge courtyard out there and we don't need all that space. But that's one thing that I thought of too late. So anyway, the next room is the dining room, which we don't have a table for yet. But one of the things that was not on the standard plan was the cabinets I have on the dining room wall that are full height. I added those because I know that houses down here don't have a lot of storage. The other change we made in the kitchen is we moved the stove from the island to the outside wall so we could vent it to the outside. And I made the island a double width island so we could get storage on both sides. In the base plan, it has seats on the outside, and we generally don't hang out in the kitchen with people. If we're going to do that, we'll sit at the table once we have one. And then as you're heading back, the first room that you come to is, and we changed that too, is the laundry area. And in the base plan, it's a half bath. But we turned the half bath into our utility room because we needed a place for the batteries. And I moved all of the electrical panels. There were two, and they were in different locations. I moved them both into that room. So I wanted everything consolidated in the utility room. And we made the washer and dryer. We got a stackable unit so we could put our litter robot next to it because it has to go somewhere too. So you have to plan for that. It's like I even planned for a spot in the island that you pull out and the trash is in it. So that way the trash cans are hidden. Then the next room back and on the right is the other half's office because he's working full time. So he needed his own office, and all of the internet cables and everything go back to that space. So if you see little blue cables still hanging down, it's because we're not finished installing all of the wireless devices. So like the one on the ceiling is a wireless access point, and then we'll have a couple of others. The next room on the right is the second bath, which I added kind of a partial wall between the shower and the toilet because I like a little privacy. And then the room behind that is my office and my studio. So it normally would have had a sliding glass door, but since the hallway door is just right outside the room, I didn't see a reason for it. And I would rather just have the window so I could have my desk there because this way I can do my painting on one side and my regular work on the other side and whatever else I feel like doing. I take Spanish classes in there too. So, and then across the hall is the bedroom, and I redid that whole end. So it had a smaller closet and a smaller bathroom with a smaller shower. And so I bumped that whole wall out so I could expand the closet and expand the bathroom and get a bigger shower. And I expanded the bedroom a little bit too. So it gave us just a little more room. And the other thing that this place has besides the courtyard, we got a decent sized backyard. And then up on top of the living room here is a roof deck. So we have multiple places that we could hang out once we get up and entertaining. We have people here, we have and here. So we really like the fact that this place isn't one big open rectangle, which a lot of houses here are. You have your living, your dining, and your kitchen all in one big open space. And we like to kind of have it separated. So, the cooking's separate from here. So if stuff's going on in there, people can be in here and be quiet. And the living room's separated from the bedroom quite a bit. So if I'm still up watching TV, he's not hearing it when he goes to bed, even though he can't hear anyway. But so we do really like this floor plan. If I could do it completely over, I would have kept the half bath and then just bumped that out a little bit further and put in a bigger utility room. That's the only other change I would have made there. But so far, all of our changes have worked out really well. And we have more storage right now than what we have stuff. So that's good.
Okay, well, let's talk about that stuff. So did you bring down stuff with you or buy stuff down here?
Well, we looked at a lot of the videos and the people discussing about bring stuff, don't bring stuff, and what type of stuff to bring. And what seemed to be kind of people either said, don't bring anything or bring it all. And I'm like, well, I don't see a need to do that because I had some, coffee tables and end tables that had glass tops and I didn't want the glass to break. I had a whole, how everyone had the china cabinets. I had a china cabinet. I had a big old oak dining room table. So those I knew didn't need to go. But what people consistently said is, the beds might not be the right size or not as comfortable. And especially the living room furniture isn't going to be as comfortable as you get it. And so I had a king size sleep number bed and I was sure the heck not going to leave that behind. That was expensive. And then my living room lazy boy furniture, which is also very comfortable. It's durable and I wasn't going to leave it behind. So then we just started deciding other things like kitchen appliances, not the big stuff, not like stoves, but your rice cookers and things like that, if you sold them, you could get 10 cents on the dollar, but then you still have to buy things down here. And so you're kind of losing a lot of money if you get rid of everything, at least the way we looked at it. And so after we got everything moved down and we looked back at it, we figure we got it 80% right of the things that we brought down and the things that we left. So that's pretty good.
Okay, so I want to hear what the other 20% is, and I also want to hear about who they used to get their stuff down here.
So what was funny about things we left is that we knew that Mexico was on the metric system, right? So we left all the English tools and we just brought the metric tools. And then we go to look to do things around the house and I'm like, really? They're using English units here instead of metric. So we kind of wish we would have brought down the English tools. We brought too many cold weather clothes. That was one thing that he especially brought a lot because he liked to hunt and camp and all those things. So we had all these different layers and all this stuff. And I pared mine down quite a bit, but still not enough. It's only cool here maybe in January and February, and you might need a coat for a week or two in the evenings. So we way overdid that. And I have 2 drawers of socks that I might wear for 1 month. So, the rest of the time it's sandals. So yeah, we overdid it a little bit on the warm or the cold weather clothes. And I did bring some just because I knew I'll be traveling back and forth to Colorado to see family and what have you. So I still have a coat and stuff like that for that. But I think those are the things. The rest of the stuff we did pretty good. I got rid of a lot of my art that I was going to, give away when I died. So I just gave it away early. And I kept the pieces that I really liked and brought them down. But I really narrowed it down quite a bit. So I was pretty brutal in my paring down of things, whereas the other half was kind of sentimental and was like, oh, I don't want to get rid of this. I was like, no, my sentimentality has just gotten less and less as I get older.
So who moved you down and how did that go?
Best Mexico Movers, Chuck. And the part that we dealt with him went really well. The part that was not good was the local movers that had to get us from Denver to the border so that they could then take our stuff onto his trucks. Those guys sucked. And they was a really bad experience with those guys. So your local movers, vet them as much as you can, because they damage stuff. They overpacked some things, underpacked other things. So the stuff that was supposed to fit in the truck with the video walkthrough didn't actually fit. So we had to leave behind like our outdoor furniture that would be very handy to have right now. So we were definitely not happy with those guys. But Best Mexico Movers, he did an excellent job, walked us through, what we would need, sent lots of paperwork. It was very helpful. And so, I was able to inventory the boxes and label them like you're supposed to get it through customs. And they got it through customs without a problem. And they actually got here the day after we got here. It took us 4 days to drive down with the cats. And they got here the day after that. So that was pretty quick. And their local movers did a good job. The only thing that got dropped was I told them that we would need a shuttle truck from the street to our house that we were renting because they have a gate that was only 13 feet high. And nobody paid attention to me saying, you need a shuttle truck, you need a shuttle truck. So when they got there, of course, they had no truck. And so they brought some guy with his miniature pickup to help bring things in. So what should have been a 2-hour job to unload stuff ended up being a 5-hour job, and you pay by the hour. So we weren't real thrilled with that. They didn't damage anything. It was just not handled as well as it could have been.
Okay, well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about money, including how much it costs to move down here. So we're not switching gears quite much. We're just kind of shifting a little bit.
For the move, I had a 2020 Mazda 3 hatchback that I loved that I sold to be able to pay for the move. The move was give or take around $20,000. I don't remember exactly, but the car sale covered it. And with all the potholes here and stuff, it was probably better to not have those tiny rim tires down here anyway. I just missed my car. And then this house, the base price was in pesos. It was 3.85 million pesos base price. By the time we did our modifications, it ended up about 4.6 million pesos. I have a spreadsheet, again, engineer, sorry, where I'm tracking everything and when we had to make the payments. So how much, at what exchange rate ended up being dollars, because, I sold my house, so I knew how many dollars I had. So I had to track everything as we were paying for it to find out how much dollars it actually cost as opposed to pesos. And unfortunately, for the first 2 payments of this house, it came right after I sold my house. So I didn't have a chance to move the money and trade it at exactly the right time. So I had to pay at the exchange rate at the time. And in early 24, the exchange rate was right around 17. So 2 of my payments were a hair over 17 and 2 of the big ones were below 17. It was like 16.8. So that hurt. The final payment, I had managed to trade the money. So it was just a hair under 20. So that helped us out. But tracking it in dollars versus pesos, including the closing costs, which we haven't closed yet, I've got it included, and the solar system, it ended up being about $295,000 for everything all in, including the curtains and appliances and the lights that I brought and all of that. I was tracking on the same spreadsheet. So it's about $295,000, which is still half as much as my house that I sold, which was basically a 2-bedroom with a loft, and it's about the same square footage. So it worked out. It's using all of the money that I made off of the house because you have to pay off your mortgage and your realtors and what have you. But my budget was dead on and we hit it. And so all our decisions actually seem to be the right ones.
So I'm really crossing my fingers, hoping that buying this house in Todos Santos is the right decision. Kat and I have had really good luck with real estate so far in terms of buying at the right time. The peso is a little bit strong right now. I think it's at like 18.5 or so. And I was really hoping that it'd get up or go down to around 20. But those days might have passed, and maybe it'll get back there at some point, but probably not before we need to start making payments. So, but that's just the world, how it is. If you're building new construction or you're renovating or something, you're probably going to be paying in pesos. If you buy a house that is owned by a foreigner right now, it's probably going to be sold in dollars. So you don't have quite the same calculation to be doing all the time. But let's really switch gears now and find out if Marla speaks Spanish.
Well, I have been in Spanish classes, online classes, for over a year. It might be approaching 2. I hate to say that. And I'm getting better. It is not easy. You got a brain that's decided not to cooperate after menopause. It's tough to memorize new things and to retain them. So as an engineer, that frustrates the hell out of me, but it's the way it is now. So I'm trying my best to learn Spanish. I'm noticing I'm understanding more. So that helps. And the other half, he notices when I understand when we're interacting with somebody, if I'm understanding him, and then I can answer them to, some extent. It's not necessarily fluent, but I can get the point across at least. So I'm hoping before I die, I'm really good at Spanish.
Well, as you know, I'm also learning Spanish, and I'm trying many different things. I'm going to have a video about all the different things that I've been trying. That'll be coming out soon. But it'd be interesting, when I think that what will be success with Spanish is to have Spanish only speaking friends. Most of my Mexican friends also speak English. So let's hear a little bit about Marla's friends, both Mexican and from other countries.
One thing that surprised us when we got down here is it's a lot easier to make friends than it was back home. And I always wondered, my sister has so many friends. She's in the Austin area, but she's in a retirement community. And, they're always going to parties and they're always doing such with all these people. How did that happen? Well, I kind of understand it now. We're in a location where there are a lot of people in a similar condition as we are in. And so it's easier to connect. There's a lot of activities, expat get-togethers. You see them in the stores. There's just a lot of different ways to connect, and more easily than back home. I think everyone is just, too busy with their own lives back home to really connect with any other people. So it's been refreshing to be able to meet people. And most of them are other expats, but we have really connected with a couple, and they run our favorite restaurant, Kilometer 14. So Jorge is the chef and the owner, and Vanessa is his wife. And they're great, and they give us all sorts of shit. We give it right back. But and she also has been very helpful because she is in the medical field. So she'll go with you to your appointments to help translate if someone doesn't speak English, or if I'm not understanding it completely. She's really helpful, and she's gone to these appointments with me. You pay her, of course, but it's great to have someone like that available. And we can ask them questions when it's why is this like this? Or, what's going on here? And they explain it to us. They don't treat us like we're idiots. We're actually treated like one of the family. We got invited to their daughter's birthday thing on Saturday. So I had to find out what she liked. And the first 2 times they had the party, we didn't think we were supposed to be included. Yes, we were customers of theirs and all that, and they posted it. But it's that's not really our spot. We're not family. But this time they specifically asked us to come. So it's oh, okay, we are more family than I thought. That's good, because they do make you feel very welcome. It's a very welcoming place, I think. And the people are generally really friendly and helpful. You just don't be an idiot. Don't be mean. Don't be cruel. They're great people, and you just need to treat everyone with respect like you would hope to be treated.
Yes, Jorge and Vanessa are amazing. I love KM14. Was just there for Taco Tuesday and found out that they have like a 2-for-1 Monday happy hour deal. So I need to be checking that out. And shout out to Zoar, my favorite waiter there. Always make sure that my margaritas are perfect. But let's switch over to safety and find out how these guys feel when it comes to safety.
I actually feel much safer here than I did in Colorado. Before we moved, and I've been in my house for over 20 years. It was a very safe neighborhood, but before we moved, we started to have some drive-by shootings. And there was a bullet that went through one of our neighbors' houses and right past her in the bathroom. Things like that were just starting to happen more and more. So, I mean, being female, you generally have rules for yourself that guys don't have to worry about. Like when you have a first-story house, you know to keep the windows shut. You don't leave the first story windows open if you're a female back home. Maybe the second story is okay as long as nobody has a way to climb up there. But there's just these unconscious things, like you're not walking around alone at night. You don't go to a bar by yourself at night. Things like that, that honestly, we haven't had to worry about here. The house we were in town, it was in a gated area, but we left the windows open on all floors. And I know that could have been bad, but it was safe. But we do feel a lot safer here. At least I do. And, you know, women are more hypersensitive to that sort of thing. And yeah, if I have to walk around downtown at night, I'm not concerned about it.
There you go. I always like to get other people's perspectives on safety. We also leave our windows open at night to get that cooler air in. I mean, La Paz gets hot during the day and then cools off at night. So you want to get that cool air in when you can get it. So, but let's wrap up this video with a tip or two. So let's hear Marla's tip for you.
I've got a couple of tips. First of all, if you can, move sooner rather than later. I actually had my CPA run the numbers. So we could look at, if I had to stay, what had to happen? If I moved to another place in the U.S., what had to happen? And if I moved here, what had to happen? And he said, if you want to move to Mexico, you can go now. Whereas everything else had years of time frame beforehand. So that's like, okay. The other thing I recommend to be here is be patient and be flexible and try to understand that not everything is seen from your viewpoint. It's not our culture here. So you need to try and look at things from a different perspective and hopefully understand it. Although I'll never understand the not telling you the truth if something's ready or not ready or whatever. I won't ever understand that.
So true. The culture here is that you always say yes. You never say no, even when you mean no. So it is something that's confusing. And for those of us from the United States, we find it, I don't know, almost cringy. But on the flip side, the culture here, everyone understands that no doesn't, or yes doesn't always mean yes. So you've got to start to learn how things work and understand when someone is saying yes, meaning yes, and yes, meaning no. So I'll talk more about that, of course, in other videos, because it is a big cultural difference that is probably the hardest one for people to get around. But I've got other folks who have gotten around that you can check out videos up here of other foreigners living in Mexico, or something down here that is perfect just for you. So from La Paz, wish you were here. Hasta luego.